Hello, everybody. Thank you all for joining today's webinar. My name is Blessing Albert. Today's webinar, we are focusing on how to reignite our passion, our goals for the years. So before we kickstart the webinar, I'm sure many of us did register to attend the webinar because this is April. We've set a lot of goals in terms of financial goals in our personal lives. And of course, career goals. Oh, I want to move from X company to this company. I want to attain this position in terms of a managerial position, or from a contract position to a full-time employee, or from a freelancer to a full-time employee. And this is April, and it looks like there's no progress. It looks like you're stuck. It looks like things are not going the way you want them to go. And this webinar is to provide clarity, and not just clarity, but to also provide actionable strategies that you can implement to ensure that the remaining 8 months that we have in this year, you don't end up saying, oh, I'm still stuck. So from this webinar, we don't want you going back saying, oh, I'm still stuck. So this webinar is meant to give you clarity. After the webinar, you're coming back saying, oh, when it comes to my career, I've gotten clarity. This is the next step to take. When it comes to my mental health, I've gotten clarity. I know how to prioritize this over this. And this is what this webinar is all about, to get clarity, to get actionable strategies. And yes, we can push you to implement them, but we hope that from the lessons and from the talking points from our speakers, they can actually push you to not just listen to what they have to say, but to actually implement them after this call. So we'll just quickly go through what we have for today, as mentioned earlier. So what is our topic for today? We're all aware you're stuck in April. I'm stuck in April in terms of different goals. How do I reignite those goals without the pressure? So that is what makes this webinar different. We all know ways to reignite our goals, but we want you to be able to reignite those goals without pressure. External pressures, internal pressures, pressures from colleagues, pressures from friends, pressures from the environment. So we want you to reignite those goals without putting pressure on yourself, because once you have put pressure on yourself, it would also limit you from achieving those goals that you actually plan to reignite. And today we have two very amazing speakers. We have Osei Owusu Kwame, and we have Maune. So I would be reading their bio shortly. So now, for those of us that are not familiar with what BYP Network is about, I'll just quickly go through this. BYP Network was founded in 2016 by Kike Oniwinde Aguru, and the sole purpose of BYP is to connect Black professionals. So now we're not just saying Black professionals, but to connect Black professionals and other underrepresented minority groups and students and professionals globally by offering them what visibility, career opportunities, business support. So now, what is our vision? Our vision in one sentence is to change the Black narrative. So for those that are still new to what BYP does, BYP has global chapters. So by chapters, we can tag chapters as smaller groups, like smaller communities, to give sense of relationship, to give a sense of feeling to Black professionals. So we do have these different chapters. We have them in Lagos, Nigeria. We have chapters in London. We have chapters in Coventry. We have chapters in Cape Town. So if you scan the QR code on this slide, or you visit our website, you'd see how to be a member of any of those chapters. And this is about our CEO, Kike Oniwinde Aguru. Kike is the founder of BYP Network, a £1 million company advancing the career of Black professionals globally. As mentioned earlier, she is motivated to change the Black narrative, and this is the reason why she founded BYP in 2016, to address the concerns around workplace diversity and the lack of opportunities that we have. So from 2016 till date, BYP has over 150,000 members globally, and we've worked with about 1,600 corporate organizations in terms of supporting their DEI activities across board. Now, this is the bone of contention. Why did you register to attend this webinar? Why did you mark out 1 hour, 45 minutes of your precious time to join this webinar? Now, the reason why you joined this webinar is because just like myself, even though I am the host, just like myself, I'm feeling stuck. This is April. I had maybe a long list, but I had a list of goals that I wrote down December last year. And I was hoping that by April, I should have gotten to about 60% completion when it comes to those goals. This is April, and I'm confused, not confused, but I'm asking myself, should I have set those goals? Are those goals too large for my capacity? Do I think I should scrap them out? Or am I just putting myself under undue pressure to achieve those goals? Can I just be relaxed and laid back and just wait and see what will happen in July? This is just April. The year is still early. Do I wait till July to kickstart those goals again? Or do I just lose hope and just wait for next year? This is the reason why myself and most of us are on this call. We're feeling stuck halfway through the year. And this webinar is here to provide us with clarity on how to overcome this mid-year slump, not just providing us clarity, but providing us with actionable strategies. And now what do we expect from our amazing speakers? We expect practical advice to overcome these barriers, expert insights, and we're not just looking at career and financial goals, we're looking at mental health challenges. So at the end of this webinar, we want every one of us on this call, plus myself, to walk away with tools that would help us reignite those goals that we did set the beginning of the year. So now I'll introduce our very amazing speakers. So we have Ose Owusu Kwame, also known as OOK. Ose Kwame, as I think he prefers to be called, Kwame is an NHS clinical pharmacist, a mental health advocate, and a speaker who specializes in overcoming fear and failure. And Kwame is a passionate youth mental health advocate who helps individuals embrace setbacks as opportunities for growth, resilience, and empowerment. Now, Kwame will be bringing invaluable insights on how mental health plays a critical role in our personal and professional development, and how overcoming these challenges can lead to success. So welcome, Kwame. Thank you very much for joining us on the webinar this evening. And of course, next we have Mauna. Apologies. Mauna is a young Black British professional and the founder of Corporate Collective, an organization dedicated to helping students and young professionals succeed in the corporate world. Now, her insights will focus on navigating imposter syndrome, building confidence, and understanding the importance of setting realistic goals without the pressure. So welcome, Mauna. Thank you for joining our webinar. We're very happy to have you both on the call. So this is Mauna's QR code for her LinkedIn profile. Now, this image is a summary of how this webinar should go. So the image of the lady with her hands on her jaw is how we look now. So what we want to achieve after this webinar is to look like the lady standing head up, confident that she's ready to smash her goals for 2025. So now we'll go into the discussion. So thank you, Mauna and Kwame, for joining the call. We're very excited to learn from you, and we look forward to the insights that we'll be getting from the both of you. So my first question, which I know would be in the minds of everyone, is so we know one of the reasons why we are stuck in terms of achieving our goals is because of fear. And fear of failure, or fear of being unable to achieve those goals, or fear of feeling that, oh, if I achieve these goals, would they add any value to my life? So now, Kwame, what would you recommend? What would you recommend for us to do? Like, what would be your recommendation for us to overcome the fear of failure when we feel stuck or unmotivated?
Thank you very much, Blessing, for this question. Fear is a natural phenomenon which is part as humans. It is part of our flight and our daily flight or fright, which as humans we were created with it. It helps us to achieve both positive results, and if it goes over its limits, that's when it moves into a negative result. What do I mean by that? If we are in an exam hall and we are writing an exam and it's timed, let's say 2 hours, the last 30 minutes, when we are being reminded that we've got 30 minutes, it is the fear that helps us to be able to put all our energy to be able to reach the finishing point. Same as athletes, when they are getting closer to the finishing point, it is that fear that kicks in, whether they are injured or not, for them to be able to reach the finishing end. So I always end up sharing with people that fear is something that we can never deal with it in terms of success, because so far as you want to succeed, you have to step beyond your comfort zone. And as humans, if you are trying something for the first time, it will bring those kind of unease moments. But when we are able to go through those kind of moments, is the fear that pushes us beyond that limit. However, we have to also know that going out of your comfort zone, there is another zone called danger zone. We are not saying that you have to be in the danger zone. We are saying that you have to step within the comfort zone. So within the comfort, stepping out of your comfort zone, between your comfort zone and the danger zone is the zone that helps us to be able to be very productive. And when it comes to failure, I believe everybody on this webinar has one way or another experienced a pitfall within our lives before. But what did we learn out of when we were not able to achieve it? Did they make us sit back and say that we're not going to continue, or it fooled us? So far as we want to succeed, we have to remember that success is an accumulation of the failing times that we keep on learning from. And every successful person has experienced that pitfall, that failing moment that they felt so bad about themselves. For us to be able to overcome our fear of failure, we have to see failure as not the final verdict. However, we have to see it as a form of feedback that is helping us to be able to reflect on the steps that we can end up analyzing and realizing what we can do differently to be able to end up making our step into the next stage that we want to end up going through. So in terms of overcoming our fear of failure, we have to acknowledge that fear is a natural phenomenon, and it is what is going to serve as the fuel or energy to be able to push into where we want to end up being. And failure is actually is something that would help us to be able to reach the end that we want to be, which is the success. So some of the things that we can do in order to help us overcome our fear of failure is also by having being in environments that do not just acknowledge our fear, but also acknowledges our strength. Because sometimes we focus too much on the stuff that we can do and we forget about the stuff that we can do. So by focusing our energy on that and removing all the little stones that has become like a mountain, by removing the little stones, it helps to make the path clearer. What can you do? Maybe if you want to end up maybe having this kind of financial goal, let's say you want to maybe save like £1,000 at the end of the year, you wouldn't just start by thinking of maybe I need to start saving £500. No, you will start by thinking maybe let me save £1, let me save 50p, then you keep on increasing. The compound effect of all the little actions that you are doing helps you to be able to overcome the fear of not achieving your financial goal to achieving that financial goal at the end of that year, the target that you have set. So these are what I would share when it comes to overcoming our fear of failure.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kwame. We should step out of our comfort zone and see failure as feedback. dwelling on overcoming fear. Maoni, what are your thoughts around people having imposter syndrome, and because of imposter syndrome, that they are afraid to make those choices, make those decisions that would actually help them to overcome that failure and actually reignite their goals?
Yeah, no, first of all, I'd like to say thank you, Kwame, and thank you, Blessing, for the introduction. I think for me, when it comes to imposter syndrome, the first thing is to acknowledge is that imposter syndrome is normal, and that's okay. I was reading a report the other day, and it said that the Journal of Behavioral Science said at least 70% of people experience imposter syndrome within their career, their personal life, or anything that they're basically trying to achieve. And I think for me, the question I always ask myself is, if I allowed this imposter syndrome to stop me, who would I then become? And the reason why I ask myself that question is because majority of the time when we set ourselves goals, we're trying to become a different person. And I always think back to a time at my old workplace. My manager, she actually went on maternity leave. So that meant I actually had to run the department for about a year. And they were looking to come up with a new fundraising initiative, and senior managers actually approached me. And at the time, imposter syndrome was kicking in because I was the most junior person within the team. And, I was looking at all the statistics in terms of the opposition, in terms of everything that I had to plan. It was a short timeline. I didn't actually have as much stakeholder leverage. However, I kept on asking myself, if I pull off this new fundraising initiative, who will I become? If I don't pull off this new fundraising initiative, who will I not become? So for me, I think it's about asking that question: who do you actually want to be when you're achieving these goals, when it does come to imposter syndrome? And then the second thing I would say is, we tend to be quite harsh on ourselves in general when it comes to imposter syndrome. Majority of the time, there is things that we have achieved within our career goals, within our personal life, and it's about just documenting those small wins. Okay, so say for example, if you can't necessarily achieve a bigger goal because you're feeling imposter syndrome, how can you work towards a smaller goal to actually help boost your confidence, to help you to actually achieve the bigger goal that you then want to achieve? But yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maune. Very insightful. Just still staying with you, Maune. We know on this call, from the BYP community, we have a lot of young professionals, early graduates, people within the 1 to 5 years career bracket. So most times in their career journey, they would want to set some goals, but they do not have the confidence to set those goals because they compare themselves with their colleagues. They compare themselves with their classmates when they were in the university. And most times they lack the confidence in setting those goals. And they also lack the confidence in executing those goals. So what advice would you have for young professionals just to ensure that they manage how they manage the pressures and the comparisons that usually emanates from environment, from friends, colleagues, just to ensure that they have clarity on their goals?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I feel like it's so important. I think for me, it really boils down to two things. So the first one is reassessing your why. LinkedIn actually released a report in 2023 that showed at least 40% of Gen Zs actually set their career goals based on what they see online. So that is a really important statistic, because majority of the time we're setting goals based on what we see online, comparing ourselves with other people. But when we actually take a step back and actually ask ourselves, is this what I actually want for myself, and will this work for me? And the reason why that's so important is because many times within my career journey, I've wanted to get a promotion, really, really fast, really quickly, because I'm seeing all my friends do so. But in reality, I'm actually not ready, and it's not actually what I wanted. I'll give another quick example. In my last job, everyone was getting promoted to an associate, and at the time I was an analyst. I really wanted to get that role as an associate. But actually stepping back and looking at my career journey, getting that associate role was not something I actually wanted to do. And instead, I wanted to pivot into another career sector. But if I actually focused all my efforts on trying to get that promotion and become an associate, then it would have created that extra added pressure. But then also as well, I'm basing a goal based on comparison. And then I would say the second thing is when you're setting goals and you don't necessarily have the confidence, I would say it's okay to ask someone and build a community. So majority of the time, if you're an early careers professional, a lot of professionals within the industry you're working in, they want to help you. Majority of the time, they just maybe haven't helped you because they're busy. And number two, you haven't asked. You know, there's that saying, closed mouths don't get fed. Majority of the time, all you have to do is ask and say, you know, I really want to set some career goals for myself. I don't know how this looks like. You've been working with me maybe for a month, 2 months, it could be a bit longer. From what you've seen from me, what would you say is my strengths? What would you say is my weaknesses? What opportunities do I have? What are my weaknesses? Can you help me set career goals? Can we set some time out to do so? And the reason why I say that is because majority of the time I've felt in the same position. However, I've made sure to go and have that confidence to actually ask someone within my firm or someone who's actually in the career that I actually want to get into. And they're more than happy to help because at the end of the day, they were once in my shoes. And if you don't actually ask them, they're not going to know. Unfortunately, a lot of professionals are not mind readers, as much as I'd love them to be. But it's one of them was you do have to go out and ask them, okay, I need help. How can you help me? And they're more than willing to do so. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. Kwame, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, what I would like to add to what Mawina has actually already shared is that as she already made mention of asking support from people who have already experienced it, because in the corporate ladder, there are people who started like you, who have all the experience, who have basically experienced everything that you have actually gone through. So they will be able to give you the vivid steps that would help you to build on your career, that will help you to build on what you have already set your goal for. Because most often we are attracted to what we see online, as already made mention of. You go on LinkedIn, you read on people's story. There's two things that will trigger. It's either you're going to be motivated or you're going to actually feel like you are behind. But all the time, what I tend to tell people is that let people's story motivate you to actually see what you have already got and what you can actually learn. The moment that we are able to turn our mentality around all these about goal setting, it helps to be able to help us to be able to achieve rather than end up distracting us from whatever that we want to end up achieving, because we are all on different timelines and career journeys as well. But by setting realistic goals, working on micro steps, and rewarding yourself with micro actions, be it daily, weekly, it helps to make that dream that you have that you think is unachievable, unattainable, become reality day in and day out. And by reflecting and knowing what you are doing best, it fuels you, because that is where you get your motivation from. Because sometimes the motivation that we are seeking from is not from what we see online, it's from within, it's from what we have got within ourselves that we are trying to actually get out. That would end up inspiring us to do more. So with the little that you have got that you might think is negligible, that could be the one that could end up shooting you to your next level. So that's what I would like to add.
Thank you very much, Kwame. From the input from yourself and Maume, you guys have touched on positives in terms of looking to mentors, looking to senior professionals to set career goals as opposed to looking to what we have as social media trends. Now, how can people identify and remove the negative influences that prevents them from achieving these goals?
Thank you very much. I am a person of faith, and my faith always carries me along with everything that I'm going through. When things get really hard in my profession, I turn to God. I end up going on my knees and praying to be able to know that inner voice that is speaking to me. Is there something that is critical? Is there something that I'm being doubtful, or is there something that's unattainable? Because sometimes some of these dreams that we want to achieve, or some of these goals that we want to achieve, is something that we wish we want to, but at that particular point in time or that particular step, it's beyond our reach. So what can we do? Where can we step back? So by praying, personally, it gives me that kind of satisfaction to be able to navigate my way. And beyond my faith, I also end up speaking to people to be able to assess, because one thing always I tell people is that social media is a snapshot of people's life. It is not the entirety of people's life, because once I pick up my phone and I record what I did in my day, it is just giving you 1 or 2 minutes of my 24 hours. It's not giving the entirety, because you can edit it, but real life, you can never edit it. You have to end up knowing that not every single person right now, we live in a world of authenticity, because people are now drawn towards authenticity. So it's making people like influencers to be able to show the real stuff that they are going through. So people are getting to understand, and it's helping with the pressure. So one thing always I tell people is that don't let what people are portraying online to make you feel like you are failing. You might even end up doing much better. It's all about making sure that you have the goals that you have set is, one, is realistic, and two, you have got people that you are accountable to, that you check in with. Personally, I've got my mentor who helps me with my public speaking and everything. Whenever I do a public speak, when I started public speaking, when I actually started properly in 2017, every time I put something online, people will be applauding me, people will be sending their beautiful comments, but behind the scenes, she'll be the one to pull up on the video and end up pinpointing areas I could end up improving. So that helped me to realize that there's still room for improvement. At the end of the day, she's still appreciating. And lastly, one thing I will encourage people is comments that sometimes we see. It's not every day that you're going to end up finding beautiful comments underneath your post. Sometimes you find horrible comments from people that you never met before. And when you end up digging deep behind it, the comment that they're leaving underneath the post or the comment that they're making towards you, they don't even mean it. It might be something that personally they are dealing with. So such comments can end up having an effect on you. But once you end up putting that mentality at the back of your mind that you are doing well, you have some words of affirmation that you are saying to yourself, it will help you to be able to thrive through and be able to deal with the external pressures. As I said before, it's the inner voice that most often helps us to be able to navigate through the difficult moments that we may end up experiencing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kwame. We should learn to filter responses, and no matter what we see online, we should understand that people give us a snapshot of what they want us to see. That is what they want us to believe is actually what people put online. So just we are on this call. If we ask anyone on this call to turn on their camera, if they are in a situation or in a location that does not look good, I'm sure nobody would want to turn on their camera. They would prefer to speak or raise up their hands or drop a comment. That's the same thing with social media. So what people actually put online may not always be the reality. So don't be influenced and don't be moved. Mauni, still on negative influence, how or what role does self-compassion play in goal setting? So we've removed the negative influences, we've reached out to professionals, mentors for guidance. So what role does self-compassion actually play in goal setting, and how can we practice this effectively, especially during difficult times?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. I think it's really important. I think when it comes to self-compassion, the first one I would say is you can't do it by yourself. There is power in community. And I always tell people, when you're building up your community, having at least 3 or 4 people in mind who can actually help you to see areas where your strengths lie is so powerful. As just individuals, as ourselves, we tend to, you know, be really harsh on ourselves in terms of what we're actually trying to achieve and our goals in terms of what we're trying to do. But sometimes it could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be a work colleague that's able to point out and say, actually, you know what, you're actually really good at X, Y, and Z. You should actually applaud yourself more for the things that you're working on and what it is that you're good at. Majority of the time, we're not able to see what it is that we are good at. So that's the first thing I would say with self-compassion, making sure you have the right community around you. The second one I would say is, I mentioned it before briefly, but really celebrating your small wins, really defining what celebration means to you. So one of the things that I always say to my friends, it sounds silly sometimes, but it really does work, is I say, treat yourself. So when they tell me something that they've achieved, I always say, treat yourself. When they say, yes, I will, I say, how? Because majority of the time, everyone says, oh, yes, I'm going to celebrate my small wins, but they don't actually have a metric as to how they're going to do that. So if that's, you know, treating yourself, taking yourself to cinema, going to a restaurant, you know, going out with your friends, at least doing something like that really does help with self-compassion and knowing that, okay, you are actually achieving something. And then just briefly touching on, I know Kwame mentioned some really good points when it comes to negative influences when you feel stuck. But just briefly touching on that, I think one of the things is we need to really be honest with ourselves. If there's an account on social media, or if there's something online that is, you know, triggering you to just feel stuck, I would say mute the account or take a break from social media. I think sometimes there's this need to always have this presence online, especially as Gen Z and young people. But it's actually okay to say, you know what, I need to actually take a step back because there's a lot of things that are triggering me. And then get really clear on your why. What does success mean to you? What does your goals mean to you? If you remove all the external voices, how does that actually look like to you? Not necessarily saying, okay, I'm going to try and achieve this goal because it looks good on paper, or it looks good for me to post about it on LinkedIn, but actually what would work really well for you. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's okay to take a break. We don't always need to have a presence online. Kwame, as a mental health advocate, we've talked about the external influences in terms of social media, having compassion on yourself, seek superior knowledge in terms of from professionals. In your experience, how does mental health play a role in achieving our professional and personal success? So
Thank you very much for the question, Blessing. We should treat mental health as our foundation, not an accessory. What do I mean by that? Mental health, to me, is the foundation that helps us to be able to do everything in our life, i.e., our daily task, our future that lies ahead of us, the dreams that we want to end up building. If we take it as something that goes along with us rather than something that carries us, it will help us to be able to know that the moment that you feel stuck, you will end up stepping back. Because without a good mental health, creatives cannot function. Without a good mental health, leaders cannot think for a nation or for their community. Without a good mental health, we cannot lead our life because everything lies in that tiny organ in your head, which is your brain. That is what end up controlling everything that we have. It controls your physical health, it controls your movement, it controls your thoughts. So to me, as an advocate of mental health and also as a pharmacist, all the time I encourage people that take your rest very, very serious. And I know that most of us are multifaceted on this platform. We want to do more. I'm one of those people. But one thing that all the time I tell people is that I might be active, but one particular day, you would never find me anywhere on social media outside. I'm just in my room. I'm resting. I'm sleeping. I'm making sure that I'm refueling myself, because if I don't feel refueled, it affects my mood. I can be angry. I can be snappy for no reason, just because I'm tired. So we need to take our rest very, very essential as much as we want to achieve our goals. Our sleep. Sometimes we ask people, "Do you sleep?" You will get different answers. Do we even know what sleep is? Some people think that sleep is just closing your eyes. No, but sleep goes beyond closing your eyes. Sleep it's about your mind resting. Some of us, the brain is still functioning. It's still having so many thoughts going on. So when we sleep, it helps us mentally, it helps us spiritually, emotionally, it helps us as well to be able to get back on our feet and function. So I've made mention of sleep, rest, and lastly, it is about taking a break. Sometimes the goal that we have, what it needs from us is not to just propel, it's for us to take a break from it and reevaluate it. We have to reevaluate our why. I did the same thing for myself at the beginning of this year because apart from being a pharmacist, I'm a podcaster as well. I was thinking about my growth of my podcast. What can I do to be able to ensure that by the end of the year, I'll be able to achieve this number of views or this quality of content that I need to achieve? I took the whole of January up until now to be able to do research, read about what I can do, to be able to reevaluate what I've done before, to compare it with what I can end up doing. I could have just said that, you know what, let me just continue. But at the end of the day, I know that realistically speaking, if I don't take a break and reevaluate what I've done before and learn new ways of getting better, I'm not going to be able to achieve that goal that I want to end up achieving. And at the end of the day, it will end up affecting my mental health because I'm not going to get the results that I want to achieve. Therefore, these three, resting, sleeping, and taking a break from our goal, is something that goes a long way of helping our mental health whilst we want to achieve our goals personally and professionally.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sleep, rest, and take a break. Feeding on the question I asked you, Kwame. So, Maune, from the professional point of view, Kwame had mentioned most of us would use the word multiple potentialite, or people can say, oh, in our CVs, in our resumes, when we're applying for jobs, one of the key things we love to highlight is, oh, I love to multitask. I love to work under pressure. But we've noticed that most times those have negative effects because we tend to do so many things at the same time. We end up having so many incomplete projects. So now from the professional point of view, how can we prioritize our goals in multiple areas of our life when it seems like multiple areas of our life, from our careers, finances, marriage, mental health, family, seems to compete with our attention? How can we prioritize our goals when multiple areas seem to compete?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I think it comes down to two main categories. So the first one is within your career, when it comes to prioritizing your goals, I would say check in with your manager. Majority of the time, the reason why we have problems prioritizing our goals is because we are still quite early on within our careers. And at the end of the day, the manager or the senior managers that you're working with, they actually have a bird's eye view of everything that's going on within the organization, the structure in terms of how it's working, the stakeholders that you actually need to deliver for. I would say have a conversation with them and say, you know, you've got so many things on your plate right now. You want to prioritize all of them. However, that's not currently working. From their point of view, what would they want you to prioritize? And majority of the time, it's like 1 to 3 things. And then from that, you can then start working on your list. That's what I would say with your career. The second thing I would say within your personal life, when it comes to just prioritizing and looking at what you want to do, majority of the time, what you've set for yourself hasn't worked. So that's why you're looking at reprioritizing again. So what I would say is honestly, start again. And I think majority of us, we tend to set a goal, we try work towards it, we realize it's not working. However, we force ourselves to continue. But it's actually okay to say, you know what, this is not working, let me start again. And the reason why that's so important is because when you start again, it can mean one of two things. Okay, this approach is not working for you, so you might need to change your approach, and that's fine. And then number two, be consistent with it. So when it comes to prioritizing your goals, you can look at different ways as that different approaches that can work for you, and then reprioritize and then be consistent with that. And the reason why I say that's so important is because majority of the time we set something, we start it, we don't finish it. But it's about looking at ways you can have a different approach. And I'll give a quick example within my personal life. I've started and stopped many things. So, I've gone from trying to have a natural hair care page, an Instagram book review page, YouTube, and doing vlogging. All of those things I started and stopped. But eventually I realized, okay, I needed to change and refine my approach. And eventually I landed on LinkedIn. And from failing at all of the approaches that I did previously, I was able to refine my approach, and now it actually works for me in terms of setting a goal, prioritizing, and using a platform such as LinkedIn to actually achieve the goals that I've set for myself. But that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't honest with myself and said, you know what, I need to start again. A lot of the things that I'm trying to work on are currently not working for me, and that's okay. So yeah.
All right. Kwame, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think Mawena has actually said it all, but one thing I want to actually add to what Mawena has already made mention of is that Mawena touched on consistency, and it's something that really sits well with actually something I could relate. Sometimes the reason why the goal that we want to achieve is not being achieved is because we focus so much on perfectionism rather than consistency, because Mawena said that she ended up starting again. She didn't stop. She didn't wait for it to be perfect. She moved on to something that will work for her, such as LinkedIn. Maybe where we are heading towards, the target that we want to actually end up head towards to build like a perfect pyramid, it's not where it's supposed to look like. Maybe we have to move on to a newer environment that would end up making us put all the lessons that we have learned to be able to build something magnificent that works for us, that will help us to be able to actually achieve that goal. So it really sits with me, and I wanted to add on to that we need to focus on consistency rather than building something perfect.
Thank you very much. I know most times when we read books, we join webinars online, we hear from motivational speakers, we hear the word consistency. So for example, myself, I set a goal to make $5 million from January. I'm hoping that should be my Q1 goal. And this is March. And in my books, I did everything possible from January, February, March. I've been consistent in all I think I should be doing to achieve that goal, and I have not achieved it. So would your advice be still to remain consistent, saying that this is 3 months, and I've been consistent, since that's the word yourself and Mawena have used. I've been consistent. I've been checking all the boxes that I need to check to achieve those goals. This is 3 months down the line, and there's no result. Would your advice still be consistency?
This is where reevaluation comes in, which Mawena touched on before then. Consistency does not mean doing the same thing repeatedly with your eyes closed. Consistency is about doing it, reevaluating what is working, what is not working, because you're going to have pitfalls along the way. You're going to have good reviews along the way. It's that exercise that you are doing that will help you to be able to achieve that particular goal you want to achieve at the end of that particular month. Because, for example, you set your goal that I want to achieve, let's say, you said, what amount did you make mention of?
That's $5 million by the end of Q1.
You'll receive it in Jesus' name. So $5 million, you have passed Q1, it didn't work. Then you sit yourself down. What did I do that didn't make it work? Did I stick to the plan? Was I controlling my spending? Was the amount I set myself, is that even realistic? How much amount have I put towards it? Because numbers wouldn't lie. When you do the maths, you'll be able to know that, okay, if it's $5 million and is 3 months, how can I do that? And you know that, let's say, you haven't got other streams of income, or you haven't got any other source of income that is going to add to your salary that you are receiving. That means it's not realistic. You are basically like tickling yourself to achieve something that is not realistic. Meanwhile, let's say we set a goal, let's say you want to achieve £300. Definitely you'll be able to achieve it. Why? Because your salary that you are receiving, your other streams of income may even make you even achieve more than that, which means you've even achieved more than the goal. So sometimes when we are actually setting the goal, before we hit the point of being consistent, we have to check the reality of that particular goal to prevent ourselves from burning ourselves out trying to achieve that particular goal. So by reevaluating, by ensuring that the goal is realistic, and reassessing it most of the time in smaller batches, let's say weekly, daily, or even monthly, it will help you to be able to know that getting closer to the target you set yourself, you know that this is the results you're going to end up achieving. Because sometimes we know the end result that it's not going to happen, but we wait till the very end and we start beating ourselves down that we didn't achieve it.
Thank you very much. Maune, so what's I think there's a thin line between realistic goals and confidence. I know we had asked a question around being confident in setting your goals. So what would be the difference between being confident in setting your goals and actually having realistic goals?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I would say the first thing is, because this is something that has been done already before, I feel like to a lot of us, it's not new to set goals, and we're not feeling confident and maybe the goals might not be realistic. I think the first thing is to actually ask someone. And the reason why I emphasize this so much is because majority of the time there are things that we're trying to achieve and the things that we're trying to do that we just can't see. So say, for example, you was talking about trying to achieve some financial goals for this year, and you were stuck on whether being consistent or whether you needed to change your approach. I think before those questions even come into play, it's about actually going to someone that you trust. Because I think within our generation, we love to say, I'm working on goals. I don't want anyone to know what I'm working on. I'm trying to be secretive. I don't want anyone to, steal my idea or etc. or, know what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that we can't see that other people can. So going to someone that you trust and saying, these are some of the goals I'm working on. I'm trying to get my confidence to actually achieve these goals. Do you feel like it's realistic for me? That person is more likely to give you a reality check in terms of, okay, realistically, will this work for you? And they'll be able to actually give you advice as to whether or not that's a yes or no. And the reason why that's so important is because they can also hold you accountable. So for me, that's what I would really say. I would say it's less so about setting the goals yourself, but more so once you set that goal, going to someone that you trust to actually allow them to evaluate, okay, is this goal realistic? What do you think the weaknesses are? Are there any strengths in terms of how I can achieve these goals quicker? Because like I said, setting goals is something that's not new to all of us. We've been doing it for quite a while. It's just something that we're missing and we might not be able to see our blind spot, but someone else can. So yeah.
Thank you very much. So we'll take one more question and we'll give room for Q&A. So the whole goal, the whole focus of this webinar is to leave attendees with clarity, with direction, with the next steps, actionable steps to take moving forward, having looked at their goals that they set for the year. Now, we understand that there are some things that are within our control. For example, social media usage, reaching out to professionals or colleagues. But there are some things that life happens, and it is beyond our control. For example, you had set a goal, a career goal, and in February or January, you lost your job. Or you had set a relationship goal, and now the relationship is no longer there. You guys have broken up. Or you set so many goals, and because of health challenges, what you had saved to use for maybe your masters, for certifications, you've had to push them into into resolving those health issues, because of course health is priority. So now, what would be your advice to people in those situations? What can they do to bounce back? How can they build and maintain momentum? So even though life has happened, things have changed, have not gone the way they planned, what do they do to ensure that they still maintain momentum towards the goals that they built, even when those external circumstances has happened?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I don't mind going first. For me, if I'm being very honest, resilience is something that I very much struggled with. I think I've never heard anyone say, you know, when something bad happens to me in life, or, you know, when I can't achieve a certain goal, it's very easy for me to bounce back. So for me, I always see resilience as a muscle that you have to train. And I actually came up with an acronym called Train Your Core. And for me, the core bit stands for, it's a reminder of when you go to the gym, you know, you constantly have to train your core to get your core to become stronger. But then not also that, for me, training your core when it comes to, you know, setting your goals, bouncing back, and, you know, being resilient is, number one, the C stands for confidence. So actually, how can you do small things to become more confident? The O stands for outlook. How can you actually change your outlook and not allow, you know, negative thinking to actually plague your mind and actually stop you from ways that you want to achieve? The R is taking risk. So when it comes to bouncing back and, you know, being resilient, you have to take a risk in life. Another example I love to use is that, you know, we all know the drink 7-Up. The owner of the drink 7-Up, the reason why it's called 7-Up is because he actually failed 6 times and he was successful on the 7th time. So it's all about taking that risk. If he didn't try again the 7th time, then he wouldn't have had that, you know, brand 7-Up. And then the last one for me is E, which is explore. You have to be able to explore different things, get out of your comfort zone to bounce back from resilience, and actually, you know, do better when it comes to becoming successful if certain things don't go your way. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. Over to you, Kwame.
Thank you very much. I really love the acronyms, Mawina. It's really, really good. What I would like to add to what Mawina has actually made mention of is, to me, the scenario that you gave, that is where self-compassion actually becomes very, very vital, because self-compassion is it's a performance enhancer. By taking into consideration that all the issues that surrounded you not being able to achieve what you've actually set yourself for, is something that is beyond our control. Because as humans, the 3 things that we can end up controlling is our attitude, our response, and our bouncing back after something has actually happened. So these 3 are what we can end up controlling. All of the other stuff is beyond our remit. For example, our health. 2 weeks ago, I was not looking forward to falling sick. However, I ended up, you know, being stuck in bed for 2 weeks, fighting for my health. I could have actually said that, oh, I didn't plan it. I would have started like hitting on myself so hard that I'm actually going on to my next rotation in my workplace. I could have actually started thinking about, oh, could this end up affecting my risk of not achieving my goals that I set myself to be able to achieve before my next rotation? So by me being self-compassionate and knowing how much I have actually achieved and what I couldn't do at that particular point in time, helps me to be able to bounce back, and I'm back in work. The only thing I can do is to be able to continue from where I ended up reaching before I fell sick. So that is where our SMART goals actually come into place, which SMART stands for being, is your goal being specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? And the R I forgotten, and also the T stands for time scale. So I think I'll stand for reliable. I stand to be corrected. The T stands for time scale. When we are setting our goals, we have to take reality check in place. What if this happens? Not saying that you have to be pessimistic about the goal, but as humans, there's nothing much that we can actually end up control apart from the 3 that I gave. So by taking all these into account, it helps us to be able to, you know, come back onto our feet and continue to where we left off. Thank you very much for the for the support. Yeah. So the R stands for relevant. Yeah. So that's
Thank you.
All
right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you both. This has been an insightful lessons, bouncing back, seek professional help, take a break. Yes, take a break. I think that's one I've taken note of. Take a break. It's okay to go off social media and come back. It's okay to reevaluate your goal It is okay to rest. So not just to close our eyes, it's okay to rest. Rest your mind, rest your body. And I think what we've taken from this session is, this is April, this is not the end of the year. And this is not the end of life. So even if you don't pick up tomorrow after this webinar, even if you pick up yourself in May, in July, it is not too late. The important thing is to make up your mind, the self-consciousness that the goals that you have set, you want to achieve them. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Yes, thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, everybody. Happy Easter. Thank you, everybody. All right. Thank you, everybody. And let us enjoy our evening and have a very wonderful holiday.